So we talk about teams having rough starts to the season. Well, Calgary is having, I would say, probably worse than a rougher start to the season. They are having a horrible start to their season. They won their first game, and they have since lost 8 games in a row. And today we're going to talk about all of that, but also talk about how it might be good for the Flames that this is happening, and here's why. But first, we got to get through the negatives before we get through all of the positives, and we always feed off of the negativity, so this should be a fun segment here for sure. But the Calgary Flames, so far through 9 games into their season, basically a tenth of the way through, they are 1-7-1. They have suffered 8 straight losses to start their season. They have only scored 16 goals for, which adds up for a 1.7 goals per game. 1.7. That is the lowest in the league, comparatively speaking. Tampa is the second closest team. I believe they're averaging 1.9, but, and that's surprising in its own sense. We'll make a video on Tampa soon if this keeps happening. But regardless, going back to Calgary, that's bad. And I'm not surprising anybody by saying that. That is bad. And usually the saying goes with almost any sport. Like you look at baseball, World Series right now, Blue Jays, Dodgers. Go Blue Jays. You look at the prime example of that. You're not going to win games when you score only 1 run. You're not. Toronto in game 1, after I'm recording this video, just scored 11 on LA. You need to get runs and you need to get goals in hockey. It's very important. And you're not going to be able to win games when you're scoring less than 2 goals or less than 2 runs. Sometimes, but not all the time. You go through the games here that the Flames have played. You start off, and ironically enough, we've streamed 2 of these 8 games. They started off against Edmonton in their season opening game. They come back from down 3-0. They win 4-3 in a shootout. Technically, they only scored 3 goals in that game. So that is the one of 2 times they have scored 3 goals. So when you look at the metrics here, they haven't scored more than 3 goals once so far this year. There are teams that have done that 3 times already. Just want to put that out there to the world. Going through the rest of these games here, they would lose to Vancouver 5-1. Shots were pretty lopsided in favor of Vancouver, so there was that. Not a great game. You know, it was a back-to-back there, so what are you going to do? Next one against St. Louis on that Saturday, they lost 4-2. They actually outshot St. Louis in that game, just slightly, but they did outshoot them in that game, so there is that positive there. They went to Vegas then. They lost that one 4-2. That's a critical divisional opponent, and obviously they were outshot in that game too, but again, not by a lot, so at least there's that positive there. Against Utah the following night, they would lose that game 3-1. They were pretty heavily outshot in that game. And then against Vegas, and that was like the statement. Like the other games were like, they were somewhat close. It is what it is. This was the statement one. They were crushed by the Golden Knights 6-1. Ironically enough, the shots were close, but they were absolutely crushed. 6 goals on just 28 shots. Not a great game there for Dustin Wolf. Then after that, it's a bunch of games where like Calgary was in it until the very end, and they just couldn't find a way to score that goal. Against Winnipeg, we did that stream on Monday on the channel, where they lost 2-1. Shots were actually 33-27 in favor of the Flames. But the Jets get that goal in the last minute and they lose. There you go. They couldn't find a goal at the end. Against Montreal, and that happens, but it feels like it's happened so much here with the Flames. Against Montreal, close game for the rest of the way. They do score the opening goal, but they lose 2-1 in overtime. There you go. Shots, they actually outshot them 37-28. But keep in mind, up until that point, that is 4 straight games where you score only 1 goal. 4 straight games. And if you want to go further than that, that's 5 of their first 8 where they've only scored 1 goal. That's unacceptable in any remark, even if you're winning these freaking games. Now, tonight against Winnipeg, or I guess last night against Winnipeg, when you see this, they did lose that game 5-3. At least they scored 3 goals. They actually outshot Winnipeg in that game as well. But again, they lack finding the goals when it really does matter. And that was a massive factor here last season with this Flames team, and we're really seeing it come to light in this season. What's crazy, though, And this makes it even worse. You look at a lot of these games, they're being outshot in some of them, yes, but a lot of them, the shots are close. Or Calgary's just outright outshooting them. A lot of them were pretty close. They were close games. And if it weren't for the guy they have in net, which we'll get into him in a little bit here, if it weren't for the guy that they have in net, I think they get blown out every game. I'm being completely honest with you guys. But what makes it crazy is that they're keeping the shots close, the games are staying really close, but they're lacking the goals to really get them over and win the game. That's just the plain truth. So Dustin Wolf obviously came out in the game after, I think it was either Winnipeg or after Montreal, it might have been in between, but regardless, he came out this past week and said to the media, he said, I can't generate offense. Him basically calling out his team. And you know what? We saw Stolarz call out Toronto for being soft, and there's a whole thing going on there with the Maple Leafs right now, like there always is. But with Dustin Wolf, he is completely in the right in every regard to go out and say this in the media. He is completely right, and there is no doubt about that there whatsoever. He is 100% correct, because what is he going to do? Listen, his numbers are not the greatest, and I feel like with Dustin Wolf having these little struggles heading into this year, it's really kind of shown Calgary's true colors, because we said a lot of last year when Calgary was in it, they were carried by Dustin Wolf. They were. So Wolf, so far this year, 1-6-1, a 3.68 goals against average, and a .874 save percentage. Listen, this guy's playing awesome. And I don't think his numbers are very indicative of that. He's had some games where he's kind of allowed some pretty bad ones, like the game against Vegas. He laid an egg in that one. But especially over the last 2 or 3 games, he really hasn't allowed that many goals. So honestly, I look at those numbers and yeah, they're not great, but Dustin Wolf is not the problem here. And anybody who thinks Dustin Wolf is the problem is just ignorant. And I don't know. His numbers aren't great, yes, but neither is this team. And that is the honest truth with it. And you look at what this team did in the offseason with the roster changes, nothing. No changes at all. No additions, at the very least. Maybe there were guys who left, but no additions of note. And I said that in the season preview back in September, maybe even it was August at the time. I said no acquisitions to a team that really struggled to score offensively. And again, what do you expect? Did you really expect that you were going to come into this year and there were going to be guys on this roster who were there last year who didn't work out last year? You expected them to just, turn it up or turn it back in some cases and just score more? Listen, yes, there will be guys who will take steps on this team. I believe there will be guys that will take steps. You needed somebody else here to come in and really help out with that. But I'm going to contradict myself here later on because, again, I'm going to say, if you want to rebuild, and that it feels like Calgary wants to rebuild, but they can't because of the guy they have in net, maybe this is the right move, if that's really the direction you want to go in. But if you're looking at this in terms of a playoff perspective or trying to make the playoffs, did you really think you were going to just make the playoffs with the same roster you didn't make it with last year? And then, for once, to start the year, your goaltender starts off slow, not even bad, just slow, and you just completely bottom out. We saw it so much last year where Dustin Wolf would just carry Calgary in 2-1 games, 3-2 games. We saw it so much last year. This team could not score to save their lives. And we're really seeing it again this year. And I look at the guys here on this roster, and I really said, I was like, what did you expect? Nazem Kadri, I think, was the best player for this team last year. Only 1 goal. He does have 4 points. Kadri, yeah, he needs to score. I mean, I think everybody on this team needs to score. There's no doubt about that. Kadri is the best guy, though. Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee have combined for 1 goal as well. Frost has that only goal. Farabee has none. I could have told you that as a Flyers fan, that the offense was going to struggle, and we're seeing it still here with the Flames, with Calgary. These guys could not score last year, and they're not scoring this year. It's not good enough. It's not. And then one of the guys who signed a big contract heading into 24-25, I believe, was Yegor Sharangovich, who had a rough year last year. I think he was injured for parts of it, but still had a rough year last year. And then he comes into this year, no goals through the first 9 games. He had a horrible year last year, and he's been horrible so far this year. He was one of those guys who we looked at on the podcast and looked at in the season previews. We said that guy needs to get it together. Otherwise, like, that contract looks absolutely terrible. It wasn't even really that great when they signed it to begin with. Now it just looks awful. And I'm just going to be honest with you. Now it just looks awful. It doesn't look like a good contract. So, there you go. Sharangovich, no goals there either. Connor Zary, only 1 goal there as well. The young guys, like, I get it. Some of them are only in their sophomore years and stuff like that. They're young, I guess. Like, it's going to take time. But again, this team is not getting offense, bar none. If they were, and Wolf's good, who knows? Like, they could be a little bit better. I don't think they make the playoffs, but they're definitely not a last-place team. I've seen some people ask the question of, will this sustain itself? Probably not. I don't think the Calgary Flames are the worst team in the National Hockey League. I don't. I look at this roster and I say, no, I don't think so. Now, in terms of offense, like, no, it's not that. It's not great. Their defense is all right unless they trade, like, Anderson and stuff like that. But to be honest with you, again, as I said on the off-rip, and I was planning on splitting this video up a little bit, but since I'm rolling here, I'm just going to keep going. I talked about it off-rip. I said that this could be a good thing. And this could be a good thing for Calgary because, again, the last couple of years they've missed the playoffs. They haven't made it since 22, back when they lost in round 2 against the Oilers. I think this could be a really good thing for them because of the fact that this team just feels like in such no man's land. And that's the truth. A lot of the time they're picking like 16th, 17th overall. They're picking in the mid-teens, late teens if they make the playoffs. They're getting these guys, though, like Coronado was a good acquisition. Connor Zary was a good guy. Zane Parekh was a steal. If you head into this year and let's just say you get top 3 and you can pick between Ivar Stenberg, Keenan Verhoff, or even Gavin McKenna, I feel like you want to go forward, obviously. So Verhoff's probably off the table. But, man, if this team lands one of those top 3 players, it could put them in such a great spot. It really could, to be honest with you. So that's why I think this might be good for them. But, again, I feel like an idiot for putting them in 5th. And I could see the problem. It was staring at all of us in the face that this team did nothing to improve their offense. They did nothing to improve their biggest problem last year. Why did we think they were going to be the same, if not better? That was pure delusion on my part, and I will admit that. There's been a lot of takes that I've been wrong about. This one, I feel like I could have easily avoided. Like, this is not a good team. They're not the worst team in the NHL, but they're not a good team. And I feel like this 1-7-1 start isn't indicative for how this team fully is, but I think we kind of see the standard here. This team is not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to come close to the playoffs. They're probably going to be bottom 5, unless if Dustin Wolf comes in here and just locks in and Calgary finds a way to score some more goals. I will say this too, like, they're playing good teams. The Oilers are a good offensive team. You know, you're playing teams like Vegas. You lost to them twice. You're playing Winnipeg twice. You're playing Montreal. Like, it's not like they're playing these bad teams and losing and teams that are down there with them. So I'll give them that, which is why I also think they will probably pull out of this at least a little bit. But I'm going to be honest with you. I think the Flames are pretty much where they are right now. They're probably a little bit better than this, but that's a good thing. That's a good thing because you want a star franchise elite player, and I don't think the Flames have that right now. Maybe Zane Parekh and maybe Dustin Wolf, but like a franchise forward to really set this team down. And if they get that this year, that would be phenomenal for this team's future. So, hey, maybe that's what you want. But anyways, I went on a little bit of a long tangent there. I do want to take a second to promote an upcoming Watch with Nordic stream we have on Sunday. We are doing Flames and Rangers at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. That should be a very fun game. Again, those are two teams that have struggled this year. Calgary coming off of an 8-game losing streak. It's going to be our 3rd time we've streamed the Flames already this year, which is kind of crazy to think. But regardless, we've done a lot of Flame streams so far. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below on the Calgary Flames. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like down below and subscribe if you're new. I hope people don't realize that, like, I'm not, like, hating on the Flames here. This is real criticism. And I feel like any Flames fan who is watching these games will agree that, what did you expect? What did you expect to happen when you bring in the same roster from last year with the same problem and you did nothing to change it? That's the truth. And maybe that's what they wanted. Who knows? It's probably what they wanted anyways. But let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.